Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Addiesdive AD2063 GMT. This watch is available from addiesdivewatches.com for €64. The regular price is €85, but you can use the 25% discount code Addiesdiveweb6365 to get 25% off the AD2063 and AD2065 respectively. So firstly, let's look at the case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black plastic pelican style case, which has 4 clips around the hinged lid. So I'll show you the interior. So the underside of the hinged lid is lined with a piece of foam, and in the base we have a second piece of foam. The 2 pieces of foam do a good job of protecting the watch in shipping from any damage. So good quality plastic pelican style case, and Addiesdive deserve credit here because this is a low tier price point piece at only €64, and this is certainly better quality than the cardboard watch boxes that Pagani Design are using, for example, at a similar price point. With regards to the items that come with the watch, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Ronda caliber 515.24H quartz. This is the plastic warranty card that comes to the watch, and as you can see, the reverse is blank. It's not filled in, but there's space to fill in the retailer, reference number, serial number and date of purchase. However, I'm pleased to report that the AD2063 GMT we're going to be looking at is covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good. You also get this Addiesdive tag, and lastly you also get this pushpin tool, which is used for punching out the pushpins in the oyster style bracelet. It's made from nickel plated steel, nailed shank to it, and it's well finished, so this does suffice if you want to tap out the pushpins used in the bracelet. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter, we have a 46.7mm lug to lug measurement, a thickness of 12.4mm and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push clasp. 2-button push clasp has a nice heavy gauge of 316L grade stainless steel, and it's signed with the old Addiesdive emblem and old Addiesdive text logo. Now, good continuity of design because we have the old emblem and also text logo on the dial. The case back, as you can see, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it, and also on the clasp. So we have the same emblem and logo in all 3 places, but however, I would prefer to see Addiesdive update this and use their new cursive text logo because I think it's more aesthetically pleasing, because this isn't a dive piece and the cursive Addiesdive text logo looks better than using their dive watch emblem, because this isn't a dive piece, it's a GMT piece or a daily wear piece. So we have a double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver applied indices and the silver mirror polished Dolphin handset. The Dolphin hands are correctly proportioned and they are very well finished. Often with low-tier Chinese brands, they have a tendency to undersize the hands. They're under proportion but also too short. But I want to give due credit to Addiesdive here because this is a low-tier piece at €64, but the Dolphin hands are correctly proportioned and they are the correct length. If you look at the tip of the minute hand, the Dolphin hand extends all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring, which is correct. And if you look at the Dolphin hour hand, you can see the tip of the hour hand extends all the way to the triangle indices which mark the GMT register. So very good proportions. Now also the second hand is long enough to reach the minute ticks on the chapter ring. Also the contrasting blue tinted GMT hour hand with the arrowhead tip extends all the way to the triangle indexes, and I think this is very good. They've got the handset finished very well with nice quality mirror polishing, but also they look very aesthetically pleasing because they have a 3D effect. They're not flats, they have facets. So the Dolphin hands are very aesthetically pleasing and they are very good to look at. Now the applied indices are also well finished, nice mirror polishing to them, and they do look very similar to Grand Seiko applied indices. Nice cream dial which is matte finish to it. The legibility is good because the silver mirror polished indices and the silver mirror polished Dolphin hands contrast very well with the dial. Quality of the printing on the dial is very good. It's nice and sharp, it's crisp and high definition, it's not too thick and blurry, so the minute ticks are clearly legible. The arrowheads for the GMT register are also clearly legible, and the quality of the printing of the Addiesdive emblem and also the text logo are very good. We simply have GMT at 6 o'clock, so no unnecessary specifications such as the water resistance rating, and Addiesdive deserve credit because often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to print too much text on the dial. For example, at the 6 o'clock position, they'll print 3 lines of text, things like the water resistance rating. So, for example, this is a GMT piece. We don't need to know it's 200 meters on the dial. It's not a dive piece. That is irrelevant information. Just having GMT on the dial keeps it nice and clean and minimalist, and I like the symmetry of the dial. The date complication at 3 o'clock is framed with a silver window, and the silver date window works very well because it gives balance to the dial, and in the absence of an index at 3 o'clock it does look balanced with the 9 o'clock index on the dial. So good symmetry to it, and I like the cream tone of the dial, which does look very aesthetically pleasing. With regards to the crown, it's solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, and also we've got a nice chamfer to it, so no sharp edge to the tips of the coin edge teeth, and it's also signed with the Addiesdive emblem, which is used on their dive pieces. So let's test the screw down crown execution. The screw down crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters, which is very strong specification because this is a GMT piece. They could have used 50 meters or 100 meters because it's not a dive piece. 200 meters is very strong specification, bearing in mind this is only €64. So let's test unscrewing it. Silky smooth. This is a pleasant surprise. I would expect at this price point there to be some cost-cutting measures with regards to the quality control, build quality and tolerances of the threads on the screw down crown, but it is silky smooth. Minimal number of turns required to unscrew it fully, and there's a perfect interface between the screw down crown and the stainless steel crown tube external thread, so the meshing of the threads is very smooth. So this is powered by the Ronda 515.24H, which is a GMT quartz movement. Pulling the crown out to the first click position is the quick set date complication position, and also the GMT hour hand quick set position. So rotating the crown clockwise, if you look closely at the date window at 3 o'clock, you can see each day of the month clicks over with a nice solid click. Now, in terms of resistance, the quick set complication feels lighter. It doesn't feel as heavy as a Seiko NH35A, which you'll all be familiar with. That has a much heavier quick set indexing. You can feel the solid clicks. The Ronda 515 series, such as this 515.24H, which is the GMT version of it, has a lighter click, but nice positive clicks. The alignment of the Arabic numerals, both the singles and the doubles, are correct. They're not too far to the left or right, and they're not too high or too low inside the framed date window. So I like the proportions of the Arabic numerals, and the legibility is good. The font is nice and fine. It's not too thick and it's not blurry. The quality of the printing of the black Arabic numerals on the white date wheel contrasts very well. So legibility is good. Now, as we're in the GMT hour hand setting position and the date setting position, rotating the crown the other way, anti-clockwise, advances the blue arrowhead GMT hour hand. So you can quick set the GMT hour in the center of the dial in the date setting position. So rotating the crown clockwise advances the date. Rotating the crown anti-clockwise advances the GMT hour hand. And it works very well. Now, it doesn't click. It's smooth. So it doesn't have indexing as per a Seiko NH34A, for example, which has a clicking index to each GMT hour. So this is smooth. You've got to smoothly cycle it through the 12 hours, but it does work very well. There's minimal backplay in it, so there's an immediate response. When you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, the GMT hour hand moves immediately. So it feels robust, feels nice and tight, and it's easy to get the alignment correct. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the second hand, you can see it stopped ticking around the dial, so it's possible to set the time precisely with the Ronda caliber 515.24H. Feels nice and light, minimal friction in the gearing. There's good meshing with the gearing, and the movement has 0 joules, very low friction. Feels the same clockwise and anti-clockwise. Now, there is some slight backplay. When you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, the minute Dorphine hand doesn't immediately respond. You can see there's some slack. So I can rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, and there is slight play. There is slight back play. You have to take up the slack. So it does take some getting used to. But however, once you become accustomed to it, it's not a problem. And that is a characteristic of Ronda 515 series movements. There is some back play when setting the time. So you just have to get used to taking up the back play. But it does feel nice and smooth and light resistance to it. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around tick around the dial once again. So let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Silky smooth, immediate thread pickup, good quality control, builds quality and tolerances. The quality of the machining to the internal thread and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube are excellent. Addiesdive deserve full credit because they have got the screw down crown execution perfect, and this is very impressive on a €64 price point piece in the low tier. It's an example to other low tier Chinese brands of how to get screw down crown execution correct. Very smooth, unscrews and screws down very well. With regards to the bezel, it's brushed satin finish and it is engraved with Arabic numerals for the 24-hour register, as you can see. Nice and low profile, so the boxed top hat profile to the double dome sapphire crystal has a low profile to the top hat crystal, but it does project above the low profile stainless steel bezel. Nice mirror polished chamfer to the edge, and that means there's no sharp edge to the top of it, so it's a low profile bezel, which is very aesthetically pleasing. The edge of it is brushed satin finish and the top edge of it is brushed satin finish, but I like the large mirror polished chamfer to it, which catches the light. It also complements the bevel, which is machined to the full length of the case, and the bevels on the case mark the transition between the tops of the lugs, which are brushed satin finish, and the flanks, which are longitudinally brushed satin finish to a good standard. So it has twisted lugs or lyre lugs, which are similar to an Omega or Grand Seiko, and I think they're very aesthetically pleasing because they've done a good job with the lyre lugs. If you look at the internals of the lyre lugs or the twisted lugs, you can see they've mirror polished the internal lugs, and they're polished to a very good standard, and it's nice. It looks good. It's well finished. Nice large mirror polished bevel. Also like the mirror polished crown guards because the top edge is mirror polished and that flows nicely into the mirror polished bevel running the full length of the case, and it is a very nicely proportioned case with a large undercut. The finishing to the head of the piece is good, especially considering the price point of €64. For example, if you look at the undercut to the flanks of the case, often with low-tier Chinese brands, they have a tendency to have a sharp, crisp edge to the undercuts to the flank of the case. And the problem with having that sharp, crisp edge is often it's not deburred and chamfered enough, and therefore it has a sharp edge which rubs against the wrist. It feels sharp. But Addiesdive have machined a nice large bevel to it, and then they've mirror polished it, and that deletes the sharp edge to the undercut of the flank. And it's very nicely polished, as you can see. So no sharp edge to the undercuts whatsoever. It's very well chamfered. The tips of the lugs have also been deburred and chamfered very well. On the crown guard side, they've also got a nice large mirror polished bevel, which runs the full length of the flank of the case, as you can see. And again, mirror polished and deburred very well. No sharp edges to the undercut whatsoever. This does enhance the comfort of the piece, but also at the aesthetics, because it makes the flanks to the case look nice and thin, both on the crown guard side and also on the left-hand flank. You can see it slims down the flank, so it doesn't look like a tall slab-sided head of the piece. The actual curved flank of the case looks nice and low profile, and this is only 12.4, even though it has a boxed top hat double dome sapphire crystal, so it is a low profile piece despite the boxed crystal. So good proportions to the head of the piece at 40mm, and they've used the correct lug width, 20. So let's look at the end links and also the bracelet in detail. Female pivoted end links are the correct choice because they give a nice snug fit to the end link in the oyster style bracelet. They articulate nice and smoothly, so they don't kink, they're not stiff. But however, the negative is they have lateral play, longitudinal play, side to side play, and up and down play. Play in every single direction, and if you look closely you can see we are looking at significant play in every direction. Now the problem is it clicks and it rattles when on wrist. Now, the benefit of it being loose is that, of course, it articulates freely, so it's not stiff, it doesn't kink, so that is good. The end link in the bracelet can pull beneath the tips of the lugs, so you get a nice snug fit. That's the benefit. But this is simply down to poor quality tolerances, because Addiesdive have either drilled the hole in the centre link of the bracelet too large, or alternatively they've used a pin which is undersized, because the pin going through the centre link in the oyster style bracelet should be an interference fit. There should be friction. It shouldn't be loose and sloppy like this with too much play. So the hole is either too large or the pin is undersized. Very easy to correct this. They simply need to use a larger pin or drill the hole smaller, and that will tighten up the tolerances, because as you can see, there's play in every single direction, and it is significant. It makes it rattle. Now, unfortunately, that's not the only problem, because this bracelet uses push pins rather than screw pins as a cost-cutting measure. Now, one has to be realistic. This is a €64 piece in the low tier, so one has to expect some cost-cutting measures with regards to production costs, build quality, quality control and materials. But this is a cost-cutting measure too far by Addiesdive, because you can see every single one of the pushpin links has significant play. Lateral, longitudinal, up and down, side to side play. And the cumulative effect of all this additional play is that it is a sloppy bracelet and it rattles on wrist. It makes an annoying clicking sound. Now, on a positive note, because it's so loose, all of the links articulate freely. So none of the links are stiff, they don't kink, they articulate, they flow nicely, but they rattle. Now, on a positive note, the brush satin finishing is very nice. Longitudinal brush satin finishing to the 316L grade stainless steel has a beautiful luster to it, and it's nice fine grained finishing. So the quality of the brush satin finishing to the top side and the underside to the bracelet is done to a good standard, and the quality of the mirror polishing to the flanks is also done to a good standard. There's no sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks, so that's good. It doesn't scratch the wrist, and the links in the centre links do not scratch the wrist. So no sharp edges, no burrs, and it doesn't pull arm hair. So they are the positives. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, the female pivoted end link articulates freely, so that's good. The end link in the bracelet can move underneath the tips of the lugs to give a snug fit. So it doesn't kink, it's not stiff, but again, we have significant lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Play in every single direction, and it is significant play. Now, this is something that really is easy to tighten up, the tolerances. So Addiesdive really need to improve upon it. I appreciate this is only €64, and one has to be magnanimous about some QC defects at this price point, but this is very bad. Lots of play in it. So they need to tighten up the tolerances of the end links, and again, the bracelet rattles. Every single one of the pushpin links has too much play, as you can see, and it is significant. It's a very sloppy bracelet. Play in every direction, but on a positive note, again, no sharp edges to the flanks, doesn't pull arm hair, beautiful luster to it, mirror polishing is good. So it's comfortable to wear, it articulates freely, but it is sloppy and it does rattle. So these are the negatives to be aware of. Let's look at the clasp. Solid 316L grade stainless steel, beautiful luster to the brush satin finishing to the body, and also beautiful luster to the brush satin finishing to the flanks. Now, on a positive note, I'm pleased to see 5 micro adjustments holes in the flanks, because this allows for fine tuning the length of the bracelet. So good to see plenty of holes in the flanks. In the absence of half links in the oyster style bracelet, sometimes it's difficult to get the correct fit, because adding or subtracting one full oyster style link doesn't give the correct fit for many collectors, but by having 5 micro adjustments, it makes it easy to get half a link of adjustment, and you can fine tune the length. So it's good to see that. Nice large mirror polished bevel, which marks the transition between the body of the clasp and the flanks. Quality of the mirror polishing to the bevel is good. No sharp edges, the top edge and the lower edge are deburred very well, and the 4 corners don't have sharp corners, so it is a well finished, solid milled 2-button push clasp. Nice foam resistance to the 2-button push triggers. And you can see the interior is solid 316L grade stainless steel, milled clasp as one would expect. Beautiful luster to it, the brush satin finishing has a nice fine grain to it. Let's check the hinge pins. Now, unfortunately, left-hand hinge pin has significant play. Lateral, longitudinal, up and down, side-to-side play. Play in every single direction, and it is significant play. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. you can see it wobbles. So it's a rattly bracelet, and the pin in the left hand hinge pin has too much play. Again, this is simply down to the hole being too large or the pin being undersized. They need to tighten up the tolerances because it clicks. As you can see, we've got a lot of play there. Unacceptable. Let's check the center hinge pin. Again, lateral, longitudinal, side to side, up and down play in every single direction, so it feels loose. Let's check the right hand hinge pin. Again, this clicks. As you can see, just look closely, I'll get the camera to focus on it. That's the amount of play we're looking at. Lateral, longitudinal, side to side, up and down play in every single direction, and we're looking at a lot of play here. My concern about this amount of play in the hinge pin is the long-term durability. When you're opening and closing this clasp on a daily basis, how long is it going to last before the excess shear load on that pin is going to cause it to shear? It's going to break, or alternatively, the ends of it are going to shear off in the elongated holes, because clearly the hole is drilled too large and the pin is undersized. So what you get is this sloppy fit. It should be a friction fit. There should be an interference fit between the pin going through the hole, but as you can see, it wobbles and it clicks. Now, the cumulative effect is you have a left hand, centre and right hand hinge pin in the mill clasp that all have too much play, and therefore it's very sloppy because all three hinge pins have longitudinal, lateral, side to side, up and down play in every direction. So my concern is durability. They really need to tighten up the tolerances of the three hinge pins. It's very easy to do. But on a positive note, no sharp edges to the top edge, lower edge of the flanks. The centre section doesn't have sharp corners, which is good. And it does close and snap shut with a nice positive click, and the 2 button push triggers work well. Nice firm resistance to the spring-loaded action. It opens freely. So, room for improvements, but no sharp edges. Right, so let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it is good. The centre section has a matte bead blasted effect to the background, and then they've engraved the Addiesdive dive watch emblem. Now, I would like to see them make this a sterile case back, or alternatively engrave the updated Addiesdive cursive text logo rather than using the dive emblem, the dive watch emblem, because this isn't a dive piece, and I think the cursive text logo would look more appropriate on a GMT daily wear piece. This looks okay on their dive pieces because of course it's the dive watch emblem they use, but I think it doesn't look right on a GMT piece. But having said that, the quality of the engraving is good. We have the specification and also Addiesdive engraved around the circumference, but the negative is the engraving feels rough, it feels sharp, and when it's on wrist you can feel the sharp engraving rubbing against the skin, so it feels abrasive, and I think that Addiesdive could improve upon it. They could polish the case back after engraving to just delete the sharp edges to make the engraving smoother rather than feeling rough, because that would enhance the comfort level. When you're wearing this for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, it feels uncomfortable due to the abrasion. It feels rough and scratchy, so it needs to be smoother. On a positive note, the profile is low profile, and that's the benefit of this being quartz powered by the Ronda 515.24H quartz movement. It's lower profile than using an NH34A, for example, which would need a bubble back case back in order to provide adequate clearance for the rotor. So nice flat profile to the case back, but it still is thick enough to provide 200 meters of hermetic seal. 50 meters or 100 meters would have been acceptable, because this is a GMT piece, not a dive piece. 200 meters is very strong specification. The milled slots are nicely deburred, so no sharp edges to the milled slots, and the case back is very low profile and well finished. It just needs to be polished to delete the sharp edges of the engraving. The female pivoted end links are a nice tight fit to the head of the piece, and they are deburred very well. The underside to the head of the piece is very well finished. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it, and as I've detailed, we have that nice large mirror polished bevel both on the crown guard side and also the left hand flank, as you can see, and the quality of the mirror polishing to the beveled edge to the undercut of the case is very good. So they've deburred and chamfered the head of the piece very well. Also like the attention to detail, because if you look at the tips of the lugs, they have nice large chamfers machined to all 4 tips, and that means the tips of the lugs do not have sharp corners. So quality of the finishing to the head of the piece is excellent, and they deserve credit for it. Right, So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet and I'm pleased to report I can easily slide 2 fingers underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. Now, this is on position 6 of the 6 micro adjustments, so we're now on the absolute maximum length of the bracelet. So needless to say, this will easily fit up to a 9-inch wrist. If you have a very large wrist of over 8 inches, you'll have no difficulty whatsoever. Plenty of links in the oyster style bracelet for up to a 9-inch wrist. Now, with regards to the heft, this is only 133 grams, even with all the links in the bracelet, and it is very long. So if you reduce the length of the bracelet by 4 to 5 links, you'll reduce the heft down to below 120 grams. So for a 40mm head of the piece on a solid oyster link bracelet with a solid mill clasp, it is very comfortable. Proportions of this piece are very good. 40mm head of the piece gives nice wrist presence, but it doesn't feel top heavy and it doesn't sit on the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. The lyre lugs or twisted lugs have a nice curved profile. They wrap around the wrist very well. Nice curved undercuts, so the tips of the lugs are very snug to the wrist. And it is a low profile piece despite using a boxed top hat profile double dome sapphire crystal. The benefit of having a flat case back rather than a bubble back case back is you can see the curved undercuts of the flanks has a nice curved profile, so this really does wrap around the wrist very well. Nice snug fit to it, and the benefit of the female pivoted end links rather than male end links is you can see the articulation. The end link in the oyster style bracelet pulls nice and snug beneath the tips of the lug, so you get a nice snug fit. There isn't a big gap underneath the end of the bracelet and the tips of the lugs, so proportions are very good. 46.7 is slightly short. It's shorter than the sweet spot of 48mm. I often refer to 48mm as being the sweet spot. That is the perfect lug to lug measurement, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist or a 7 to 8-inch wrist respectively. 48mm lug to lug is perfect. At 46.7, it's 1.3mm below the sweet spot, but it is close enough. So nice compact lug to lug. If you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist, this will fit you to perfection. If you have a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, it will still fit, although it is slightly short. But I think 46.7 is acceptable for a 40mm head of the piece. Feel good factor is good. Comfort level is good. Also, the AR coating works very well. The cream dial contrasts very well with the mirror polished Dauphine hands and the applied indices, so the legibility and the clarity is good. The only negative is the rehort is very deep, and that means the dial sits very deep beneath the box top hat double dome sapphire crystal, and it is noticeable. You can see the dial looks very far away from the underside of the box top hat crystal. It looks very deep inside the case. That's the negative of this being quartz powered. The Ronda 515.24H is a low profile quartz caliber, and therefore there's a lot of space inside the head of the piece, and of course Addiesdive have filled up that space between the dial and the crystal by using a deep rehort, and it is very deep. It's brushed satin finished and it catches the light, so it does look like a mirror beneath the crystal. And although the AR coating works very well and the cream dial contrasts very well because it's a matte finish, the legibility is good, but you can see the depth of the rehort really is noticeable, because when you tilt it at an oblique angle, it's like a 360-degree mirror. You can see the light reflecting off the shiny silver rehort. Although it's brushed satin finish, not mirror polished, it does catch the light. So that's something to bear in mind, the deep rehort. But good looking piece. I like the large mirror polished chamfer to the stainless steel bezel, and also the large mirror polished bevels on the edge of the case. Very aesthetically pleasing, so good looking piece. Comfort level is very good, and 40mm 133 grams is very good. Feels balanced, doesn't feel top heavy. Taper is correct. 20 to 16 is the perfect taper for an oyster style bracelet, and correct for a 40mm head of the piece. So nice compact lug to lug measurement. Now, needless to say, this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, because 13mm or below is the sweet spot. This is only 12.4. So low profile piece and good. Good looking piece, comfort level's good. It's just a shame about the rehorts because it is very deep. If you look closely at it, you can see. When you look at it front on, it's not as noticeable. But when you look at it at an oblique angle, when you tilt the piece, you can see it catch the light. So the deep rehaul is notable. That is a characteristic of Ronda 515.24H quartz powered pieces. It's a low profile movement, so the dial is very deep inside the case. Right, so there's no loom on the dial and hands, so we don't need to do a loom test. So let's discuss the movement used, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So this is powered by the Ronda caliber 515.24H. The architecture of the 515.24H is the same as the 515. It's a Swiss-made quartz movement, and the difference is the 515.24H has a GMT hour hand added to it, which is driven off the date complication. So as I've demonstrated, when you're in the date setting position, when you rotate the crown clockwise, that advances the quick set date. But also, when you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, that advances the GMT hour hand clockwise. So the date complication also drives the GMT complication. And it works very well. It has 0 joules. It has hacking, which is useful, and a quick set date complication and quick set GMT hour hand complication, which I've demonstrated. Both work very well. 45-month battery life is very impressive. Often with quartz movements, they only have a 2-year battery life. But the Ronda 515.24H used in this piece has a 45-month or 3.75-year battery life. So you could wear this watch every day and not need to change the battery for 3.75 years, which is very impressive. The other impressive aspect is the accuracy. It's a very accurate caliber. The stated accuracy of the 515.24H is -10 to +20 seconds per month. Just think about that for a moment. That's not -10 to +20 seconds per day or per week. -10 to +20 seconds per month. That is better than ±1 second per day accuracy. Incredibly accurate quartz movement. So correct choice for this piece at €64. Had they used the Seiko NH34A automatic, that would have been more expensive and of course increased the price point. At €64, the Ronda 515.24H is the correct choice. It's a Swiss-made caliber. The reliability, the build quality, quality control and materials are all excellent. No reliability issues whatsoever reported with the Ronda 515.24H, and it's made in Switzerland. So good quality, quality control is good. I like the quickset complication and I like the quickset GMT hour complication. They are the benefits. So accurate movements and of course 45-month or 3.75 year battery life is very long. Usually with a quartz one would expect 2 years of battery life. No negatives to it whatsoever. Works very well. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So, low tier price point piece, €64. I'm going to say it is good quality and I'm going to say it's good value. Now, I'm not going to say excellent quality and excellent value, despite it having a good quality Ronda Swiss movement, because the play in the end links is unacceptable. The play in the sloppy bracelet is unacceptable, and again, the play in the 3 hinge pins is unacceptable. These tolerances need to be tightened up throughout, and if they did that, yes, I would say it's excellent quality and excellent value at €64, but one has to be magnanimous because at this price point of €64, one has to expect some quality control defects, build quality and production cost cutting measures. The movement is good. The screw down crown is silky smooth and 200 meters of specification is strong specification. AR coating and sapphire crystal works very well, strong specification. So the head of the piece is excellent, but it's let down by poor quality bracelet and clasp. So I would say the head of the piece is excellent quality and excellent value, but the bracelet is poor quality and the clasp is also poor quality. So that really lets the piece down. It is worth buying at €64 if you're going to be putting it on a strap, and or alternatively if you can put up with the sloppy bracelet and the sloppy end links. So I'm going to recommend it to you for your consideration, but bear in mind the QC issues. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Addiesdive AD2063 GMT. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.